she did learn to speak, write, teach, and so much more. Temple Grandin has a PhD, is a university professor, and is considered an expert in many more than one field.
A doctor's diagnosis can feel like a hammer blow, and for Eustacia Cutler in the 1950s, it shattered her world. Her daughter, Temple Grandin, was diagnosed with autism, and the doctor's recommendation was cold and final: put her away and forget about her.
My speech came in gradually, a few words at a time. When I was a little kid, I was very autistic, nonverbal, rocking. You know, that's the kind of kid they just put away in the institution. But I had a speech teacher that worked really hard with me, and I can't emphasize enough the importance of young children getting early intervention. You got a 2-year-old or 3-year-old with no speech, don't wait.
But not all things are what they seem. Eustacia held on to a secret belief about her daughter's true potential. In her final years, she exposed the painful truth of raising a child deemed hopeless and fighting a cruel, unfounded theory that blamed mothers for their children's condition, a fight that would ultimately vindicate them both. When hope was a thorn. In the quiet, conformist world of the 1950s, a young mother named Eustacia Cutler lived a life of quiet desperation. Her daughter, Temple, was a beautiful child, but she was trapped in a world of her own. By the age of 4, she still couldn't speak a single word. She would spin in circles for hours, stiffen at any attempt at a hug, and erupt into terrifying tantrums that no one could soothe. To put it mildly, it was a waking nightmare. Friends and family offered well-meaning but useless advice, their whispers and worried glances following Eustacia everywhere. You see, in that era, a child's behavior was seen as a direct reflection of their mother's love and care. Finally, helpless and terrified, Eustacia took Temple to see a specialist, praying for an answer, for a name to put to the invisible wall that stood between her and her daughter. She got an answer, but it was a ruthless one. The doctor in his sterile, impersonal office delivered the diagnosis like a judge passing a final sentence: autism. In those days, that word was not just a diagnosis, it was a curse. It meant hopeless, unreachable, broken. The doctor explained that Temple would likely never speak, never lead a normal life. And then came the recommendation, a suggestion so cold it froze Eustacia's heart. He advised her to send Temple to a residential institution. Put her away, he implied, and forget her. But the thing nobody tells you about that moment was the unspoken accusation hanging in the air. The prevailing psychiatric theory of the time, a cruel and baseless idea, was that of the refrigerator mother. This theory claimed that autism was caused by mothers who were emotionally cold, distant, and rejecting of their children. So when the doctor gave his diagnosis, he wasn't just labeling the child, he was silently condemning the mother. Every sleepless night Eustacia had spent, every tear she had shed, every desperate attempt to connect with her daughter was erased. In the eyes of the medical world, she was the cause of her own child's suffering. It was a psychological blow of unimaginable cruelty. Many people are crazy about finding someone to blame, and in the 1950s, mothers of autistic children were the easiest targets. What many overlooked was Eustacia's spirit. She was not a refrigerator. She was a furnace of love and determination. She looked at the doctor, this man of science who saw only a broken specimen, and made a decision that would alter the course of her life and her daughter's. She would not give up. She took Temple home, away from the world of sterile diagnoses and silent blame. She began her own one-woman therapy program. Day after day, she would hold up objects, repeating the words ball, cup, book, guiding her daughter to make sounds, any sound. She turned their home into a school, a sanctuary. She read to Temple, played games with her, and structured their days with a fierce, loving discipline, hoping to carve a pathway into her daughter's locked world. It was a lonely, exhausting war against a ghost, a fight to prove a lie wrong. But a mother's love couldn't protect her from the outside world forever. A new kind of school. Against all odds, Eustacia's relentless efforts paid off. Temple did begin to speak. It was a breakthrough that doctors had deemed impossible. By the age of 11, defying every grim prediction, Temple was enrolled in a regular school. For Eustacia, this was a moment of incredible triumph, a testament to her unwavering belief. But what she quickly learned was that breaking the silence was only the first battle. The social world of school was a minefield of unwritten rules. confusing cues, and casual cruelty that Temple was utterly unprepared for. Her classmates saw her as strange, a target for mockery and provocation. Temple, unable to process the teasing logically, would often lash out physically, leading to a cycle of conflict that ended with the school persuading Eustacia to remove her. The victory felt hollow, replaced by the familiar sting of failure. Eustacia was once again at a crossroads. The conventional world had rejected her daughter, but instead of retreating, she pushed forward, searching for a place that wouldn't try to force Temple into a mold she could never fit. Her search led her to a boarding school, a place with a different philosophy. The moment they arrived, something shifted. Temple saw the school's scientific equipment, and for the first time, her eyes lit up with a genuine, passionate interest that Eustacia had never seen before. Still, leaving her there felt like an abandonment, a surrender. As she watched Temple spinning on a swing, a familiar wave of guilt and fear washed over her. It was then that a teacher, a man named Dr. Carlock, approached her. He didn't see a problem child or a failed mother. He saw potential. You see, Dr. Carlock was unlike any other educator Temple had encountered. He was observant and patient. He noticed that while Temple struggled with abstract concepts like language and logic, she possessed a truly extraordinary gift. Temple thought in pictures. Her mind was like a high-speed search engine for images. If you said shoe, she would see a slideshow of every shoe she had ever laid eyes on. When a teacher asked her to read a page, her mind took a snapshot and she could recite it word for word without looking. Dr. Carlock realized this wasn't a defect, it was a different operating system. He saw that Temple wasn't lacking intelligence, she had a different kind of intelligence. To help Temple understand her own mind, he designed a special visual problem course. He showed her optical illusions, like a room where objects and people could appear to shrink or grow depending on their position. For Temple, this wasn't a trick, it was how she saw the world, a series of spatial relationships and data points. Dr. Carlock gave her an assignment, build a model of that illusionary room. While other students laughed, Temple became completely immersed, carefully measuring every angle, recording every piece of data. Relying on her incredible spatial imagination, she constructed a perfect replica. For the first time, her unique way of thinking was not just accepted, it was celebrated. Dr. Carlock encouraged her to aim for university, telling her that her mind could shine in a scientific field. He opened a door for her, not into the normal world, but into a world where her differences were her greatest strength. But a new challenge loomed, one that would come from a very unexpected place. The fight for the hug box. When boarding school ended for the summer, Temple went to stay at her Aunt Anne's ranch. It was a world away from the structured halls of academia, a place teeming with the sights, sounds, and smells of livestock. The animals seemed to have a special magic, and Temple was deeply drawn to them. Her unique mind was constantly at work. Arriving at the gate, she wouldn't just see a gate, she'd instantly calculate the angle of its swing in her mind. But the thing is, her sensitivity was a double-edged sword. The vast, unstructured environment could also be overwhelming. Small changes, unexpected noises, or social pressures could trigger a complete emotional collapse. She couldn't bear to be hugged or touched, leaving her in a constant state of high-strung anxiety without a release valve. One day, she noticed the cowboys driving the herd into a device called a squeeze chute for vaccinations. The machine used heavy plates to hold the cattle tightly, immobilizing them. Temple watched, fascinated, as the frightened, agitated animals would suddenly become calm and still the moment the pressure was applied. Her curiosity was ignited. For hours, she just stared at this machine, her visual mind deconstructing its mechanics and its effect. What many overlooked was that Temple saw a reflection of herself in those anxious cattle. She too felt a constant, overwhelming sense of panic that she couldn't control. The inevitable emotional storm came when a maid accidentally knocked the name label off her bedroom door. This tiny change was enough to shatter her fragile sense of order. The world around her became terrifying, and she fled in a blind panic. She ran past the worried adults, past the cattle, and went straight for the one thing on the ranch that made sense to her: the squeeze chute. She got inside and begged her aunt to operate it. Helpless, her aunt pressed the switch. And in that moment, something incredible happened. As the plates closed in around her, the restless, anxious Temple became quiet. The deep pressure provided the calming sensory input she craved but could never accept from a human embrace. She had found her own hug. When Eustacia arrived to pick her up, she was initially horrified. Seeing her daughter willingly place herself in a rough piece of cattle equipment was shocking, to say the least. But then her aunt explained that it worked. It calmed Temple in a way nothing else could. For Eustacia, it was a profound and heartbreaking revelation. This machine provided the gentle, firm embrace that she as a mother had always yearned to give her daughter. Temple took this idea to college, building her own human-sized version out of wood. It was her sanctuary, her way of surviving the sensory overload of university life. But when a roommate reported it as some strange contraption, the school confiscated and destroyed it. They saw a bizarre device, not a lifeline. They threatened to expel Temple, saying the school might not be suitable for her. This was the old prejudice rearing its head again. But Temple, now armed with the confidence Dr. Carlock had given her, decided to fight back not with anger, but with data. She turned the machine into a science experiment, proving its calming effects and eventually winning the right to keep it. She had won the battle for her machine, but a much larger war awaited. The woman who spoke to cows. With her degree in hand and her squeeze machine as a trusted comfort, Temple set her sights on graduate school, choosing to study animal science. This path led her into the heart of the American livestock industry, a rough, male-dominated world that was not prepared for a woman like her, let alone a woman with autism. She began visiting feedlots and processing facilities, and what she saw disturbed her. She saw that the cattle were handled roughly, with cowboys jabbing them with sticks and shouting to drive them through disinfectant pools. The animals were terrified, their calls filled with panic. In their fear, they would slip, get injured, or even drown. The farm owners dismissed these losses as a simple cost of doing business. But Temple saw something else. You see, she didn't just see chaotic animals, she saw the world from their perspective. Crouching down to their eye level, she realized the problem wasn't the cattle, it was the environment. She saw that a puddle on the ground reflected a glaring light that looked like a dangerous hole. She noticed that a swinging metal chain or a shirt hanging on a fence appeared to be a predator. These were the triggers that caused the herd to panic. She also observed that cattle naturally moved in curves and that a curved path could calm them down. She was seeing a world of details that everyone else had missed for decades. She took her discoveries and wrote a master's thesis on the subject. At first, her professors were dismissive. They thought the idea of studying cattle calls or their walking habits was absurd. The industry itself was even more hostile. When she tried to conduct research at a ranch, she was stopped at the gate. She sharply noticed that everyone entering the facility was a man driving a rusty pickup truck. So in a move of brilliant problem-solving, she traded her car for a pickup, bought a cowboy outfit, and literally rolled in the dirt and threw mud on her truck to blend in. The cowboy, seeing this strange woman crouching on the ground, mocked her relentlessly, even throwing cattle entrails on her car. But she was undeterred. Eventually, her persistence and the undeniable quality of her research won over a few key people, including a magazine editor who published her work. Her name began to get around. A feedlot manager, desperate to reduce losses, took a chance and asked her to design a new disinfectant pool. Temple was inspired. She designed a system with a curved entry, solid walls to block distractions, and a sloped, non-slip ramp. On the day of the demonstration, the herd walked slowly and calmly through the system. No whips or shouting needed. It was an orderly, perfect success. Her hard work paid off. Her designs began to revolutionize the industry, not just improving efficiency, but also winning more humane conditions for the animals. Eustacia Cutler fought the experts to prove her daughter wasn't broken. But in a world that still demands conformity, have we truly learned the lesson she tried to teach us? Let us know your thoughts below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.